Hello, welcome to another favourite tale from Ladybird. I'm going to read you the story of Puss in Boots. Listen to the story and read along at the same time. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. When you hear this sound, you can turn the page. Puss in Boots. Once upon a time, there was a miller who had 3 sons. When the miller died, he left the mill to his eldest son and a donkey to his second son. They were able to set to work straight away. But all that was left for the youngest son was his father's cat. "Poor Puss," said the miller's son. "How shall we manage?"
"Don't worry," said the cat. "Give me a pair of boots and a bag, and we will do very well together."
When the miller's son brought the things the cat wanted, Puss got ready. He put on his boots and left the bag filled with lettuce leaves in a field. Very soon, a little rabbit came to nibble the lettuce. Quick as a flash, Puss caught the rabbit in his bag and carried it to the king's palace.
"Your Majesty," said Puss, "please accept this fine rabbit as a present from my master, the Marquis of Carabas."
"I've never heard of him," said the king, "but you deserve a treat from the kitchen." The next day, Puss heard that the king and his daughter would be driving by the river.
"Master," he said, "do what I say, and we shall be rich. You must take off your clothes and swim in the river, and you must believe that your name is the Marquis of Carabas."
"I've never heard of him," said the miller's son, "but I'll do as you say, Puss." Before long, the king drove past with his daughter, the princess. He was pleased to see Puss again.
"Your Majesty," said Puss, bowing low, "a very terrible thing has happened. My master, the Marquis of Carabas, was swimming in the river when some thieves came and stole all his clothes."
"How dreadful!" exclaimed the king and the princess together. The king sent off to the palace at once for some clothes. When the miller's son put them on, he looked very handsome. "Please come and ride in our carriage," said the king. "May I present my daughter?" Puss ran quickly on ahead. When he saw some men making hay in a field, he shouted to them, "The king is coming! If he asks, you must say that this land belongs to the Marquis of Carabas." "We've never heard of him," said the haymakers, "but we'll do as you say." Soon, the king drove past in his carriage with the princess and the miller's son. "Tell me, my man," said the king to a haymaker, Whose land is this? It belongs to the Marquess of Carabas, Your Majesty, the man replied at once. Meanwhile, Puss had found out that the land was really owned by an ogre who lived in a huge castle nearby. Puss quickly made his way to the castle and knocked on the door.
Sir, is it true that you are a very good magician?
He asked the ogre. The ogre, who liked to show off, replied,
Yes, it's true. I can even turn myself into a lion.
Quick as a flash, the ogre became a fierce, roaring lion. Puss was so startled that he scrambled to the top of a chest of drawers to hide. When the ogre had changed himself back again, Puss jumped down.
Turning into a lion must be easy for someone as big and strong as you, he said. But can you turn yourself into something tiny, like a mouse?
Of course I can,
roared the ogre.
Just watch.
In the blink of an eye, the ogre became a little mouse scurrying across the floor. Puss instantly pounced on him and ate him up.
Now that the ogre is gone,
Puss said to himself,
this castle will make a very fine home for my master, the Marquess of Carabas.
The king was most impressed by the handsome young man who owned such rich land and lived in such a magnificent castle. He would make a fine husband for my daughter, the king said. So the miller's son and the princess and Puss lived happily ever after, and now everyone has heard of the Marquess of Carabas.
Hello again. Did you enjoy the story of Puss in Boots? Perhaps you're wondering what happened next. Well, listen carefully and I'll tell you about the brothers' revenge. The Marquis of Carabas was very happy in his new life, and Puss soon got used to dining on the finest fish with fresh cream for dessert. The princess was very happy too, especially as she could visit her father, the king, any time she liked. The king even gave the Marquis a job. They were all very contented, for a time, but their happiness did not last long. Now I am sure you will remember that the Marquis was the youngest of 3 sons. The eldest son had inherited their father's mill and had become the new miller. The second son had inherited their father's donkey and had set up a business delivering vegetables. Both sons were very successful. The miller made his flour into bread and cakes for the king, and the second son delivered all the king's vegetables, but neither son was very happy. One day, the eldest son said to the second son, "I have been thinking about our youngest brother. It doesn't seem fair that he's ended up a marquis, living in a castle, married to the king's daughter and all that. Why, we still have to work for our living." "I have been thinking about that too," said the second son, "but I guess that is life. We just have to accept it."
"No, we do not," declared the eldest son. "I think we ought to do something about it."
"Really?" said the second son. "Like what?"
Stammered the eldest son. "I'm not sure, but I will think of something."
"Let me know when you do," called the second son, and he rode off with his donkey and cart to deliver some vegetables to the king's palace. That afternoon, the eldest son burst into his brother's house.
"I have got it!"
he cried.
"I know how we can do it!"
"Do what?" asked the second son. "What are you on about?"
"I know how we can fix that brother of ours, the so-called marquis,"
the eldest brother cried. Now you know that the Marquis of Carabas was really a humble miller's son. Puss knew it too, of course, and so did the Marquis's brothers. But the princess did not know, even though she was married to the Marquis. The Marquis thought his wife might not understand, and he was worried in case she decided to throw him out of the kingdom. He did not want to lose his wife, or his castle, or his job with the king. So he just went on with his life, and hoped the princess would never learn about his true identity. Well, the Marquis's brothers knew that the princess did not know the Marquis's secret, and now the eldest brother had come up with a very sneaky plan. This is what they did. One morning, the two brothers walked right up to the door of the Marquis's castle.
"Hello, brother!"
the eldest called in a loud, loud voice. The words boomed and echoed through the vast castle hall. The Marquis came running out at once. "Shh!" he hissed. "Please, not so loud." "Afraid someone might hear?" scoffed the second son, in an even louder voice. "Yes," whispered the Marquis. "My wife, if you must know."
"Aha!" said the eldest. "The poor marquis! He is afraid his wife will find out who he really is."
"Shame," said the second son.
"Well, she will find out," threatened the eldest son, "unless you give us some gold."
The Marquis went very pale. "How much do you want?" he asked weakly. 5 gold pieces, said the second son.
"No, make that 10 gold pieces," said the eldest.
"How much?" croaked the Marquis, going even paler.
10 gold pieces, repeated the eldest. "And we want another 10 every week, or we will tell your wife who you really are."
And the two eldest brothers both laughed so hard they nearly fell over. Trembling, the Marquis gave them 10 gold pieces, and they left. Now all this time, Puss had been sitting on a castle window ledge, and he had seen everything. He watched the Marquis walk slowly back inside the castle and sit in an armchair by the fire. He saw the Marquis put his head in his hands. "Oh, Puss," moaned the Marquis, "what am I going to do?" "Don't worry," said Puss, jumping down off the window ledge. "Just pass me my boots, please. There is something I have to do." That afternoon, the Marquis was having tea and cakes with the king. The king picked up a delicious-looking cream cake and took a huge bite.
"Ugh!"
he cried, and spat out a dead mouse.
"Ugh!"
he said.
"Where did that come from?"
At the same moment, the Marquis took a big bite of a large iced bun.
"Ah!"
he cried, and spat out a dead beetle. "Where did that come from?" he said. The king was now busily cutting up all the cakes and searching the insides. He soon had quite a collection of dead mice, beetles, twigs and stones,
Send for that miller!" he ordered in his most kingly voice. The eldest son soon arrived, trembling. "You are sacked," said the king. "What is more, I order you to leave the kingdom, and do not ever come back." Just at that moment, Puss crept out from under the table, looked up at the Marquis, and winked. The next day, the Marquis was on his way to the king's palace, when he heard a loud noise at the palace gates. As he got closer, he saw that his brother, the second son, was there with his donkey and vegetable cart, and he was having a huge row with the king's cook. The king was just coming out to investigate. "What is all this? What's going on?" the king demanded. "All the vegetables this man sold me have teeth marks in them, your majesty," the cook explained. "Look!" And he held open a sack of potatoes. "So they have," said the king, sifting through the potatoes. "Here is one that has been bitten in half." He looked through a sack of carrots, then a basket of cauliflowers. In both, he found nothing but bitten, chewed-through vegetables. "It is that donkey," said the cook. "This man does not know how to control his animal, your majesty. I cannot cook any of these vegetables, and we have an important banquet tonight. What am I supposed to do?" The king turned to the second son and glared at him. "This is all your fault," he said. "You are sacked. What is more, I order you to leave the kingdom. Take that donkey with you, and do not ever come back." Just at that moment, Puss appeared from under the vegetable cart, looked up at the Marquis, and winked. As you can imagine, the Marquis was glad he did not have to worry any longer about his brother's giving away his secret, but he decided that he really ought to tell his wife the truth about himself. So he told the princess everything, from beginning to end. When he had finished, the princess burst out laughing. "You do not expect me to believe all that?" she gasped. "I have never heard such an outrageous story in my life!" And she laughed and laughed and laughed, until tears rolled down her cheeks. At last, the princess stopped laughing. "But you know," she said, looking at her husband tenderly, "even if that fairy tale were true, I would love you just the same." And she gave him a big hug. As the Marquis hugged the princess back, he looked at Puss, who was putting his boots away in the cupboard. Puss just smiled at him and winked, and they all lived happily ever after. Wasn't that a lovely story? There are lots of other favourite tales to be enjoyed in this Ladybird book and tape collection. The Elves and the Shoemaker, The Three Little Pigs, The Gingerbread Man, Little Red Riding Hood, The Three Billy Goats Gruff, Pinocchio, Goldilocks and the Three Bears, Thumbelina, and The Little Red Hen. There are other great book and tape packs to collect too. Storytime, Nursery Rhymes, Desperate Dan and Dennis the Menace, available wherever Ladybird books are sold. Listen with Ladybird, timeless quality for today's child.